Hello friends, welcome back. In the last video, we learned about adding a section and a panel to the customizer panel, which is the feature of the classic themes Customize API. We use the 2021's child theme that we have created to do this. Now we have to add controls and settings for the post details. So I have created a settings called display date, and this settings is also visible inside of the post details section here. Let's see how this works. So I will go to the add settings function and then I will open the WP customize settings class. Here, you can go to the constructor and see the list of arguments that you can pass. The first is the type, which is the settings type. So whether you want to save this settings as a theme mod or as an individual options in the options table is dependent on what you pass to this argument. Here I've passed it as a theme mod. We have different types of theme mod. So in the database, we can go to the WP options table and I can query to fetch all the theme mods using the like operator. So it is theme underscore mod. And here we can see that the 2023, 2021, and 2021 child, etc. So based on the theme name, WordPress creates an option with the theme underscore mods underscore theme name prefix, and all the customizer settings are set by the theme will be saved here in the serialized format. So for our 2021 child theme, we can check the settings and we can see the display categories, display dates, display tags settings here. The WordPress Customizer API will save the settings into the theme mod option only if we have declared the theme type as theme mod. If you pass the type as an option, then it will save the settings as an individual options in the WP options table. There are best practices about when to use individual options and when we have to keep it as a theme modification for a particular theme. For example, as a developer, I am developing a theme and the customizer settings I have provided for the theme are specific to my theme only. In that case, I will use a theme mod because these settings are only used by my theme. If I add it as an individual option, and then if the user deactivates the theme, those options will remain there as orphan data in the options table. And it won't be used until the user uses my theme again. This pollutes the options table. Therefore, we should store it as a single option as a theme mod. Next, we have some familiar arguments like the capability, theme supports. Next is the default, which is the default value for the setting. Here I have provided the default value as true because I want to display the date, categories, and tags by default on all the pages. Next is the transport method, which is used for adding the live preview of changes into the customizer. There are three different types of transport method. If you go into the documentation diagram, it defines how the changes are previewed in the customizer. So refresh reloads the entire preview frame. The post message method uses JavaScript for instant updates without reloading, and the selective refresh updates only specific parts of the preview using Ajax. Now we will see this in action with the example. So in the post details section, I have registered three controls to display date, categories, and tags. As you can see, when I toggle the checkbox for display date, the date is toggled in the preview section in real time. Same for categories and tags. This is done using the post message transport method, and we are handling this using JavaScript. Then we have a validate callback, which is used for server-side validation of settings value. So before updating into the database, the validate callback function, if provided, will be called, and we can validate the data provided by the user. Then the sanitize callback allows us to sanitize the input given by the user. And then there is sanitize JS callback, which we can use to sanitize the data in JavaScript. The dirty argument indicates whether or not the setting is initially dirty when created. So if true is passed to this argument, then the publish button will always remain enabled. So for example, by default, we have passed the dirty argument as false. So if we publish these changes and if I reload the page, you can see the published button is no longer enabled. But to change this behavior, we can pass the dirty argument as true. If that is the case and I reload the page, by default, the publish button will be enabled. So this can be used for a variety of use cases. For example, where we want to keep the settings dirty all the time, like let's say some settings value is time dependent and that should always change every time user opens the customizer. So that's all about the settings. Here I've registered the sanitize callback, and this callback functions I've taken from the 2021 theme just for reference. This is the same callback function which sanitizes the checkbox that is used in the 2021 theme. So for demo purposes, I've used just that. It will simply check whether the user has ticked the checkbox or not. And based on that, we are returning true or false. Using sanitization, we can also perform indirect validation and sanitize the value. So apart from true or false, no other values will be saved inside of the database. Sanitization and validations are very important when registering custom settings. We must provide callbacks and handle all the user inputs in a better way to avoid any errors or issues. Now, when we add a setting, it doesn't automatically display a checkbox or anything in the UI. We have just registered a setting, and these settings will be used by the WordPress to save the data into the database. Before saving into the database, it will use the callback functions for validation and sanitization. The transport method also defines which method is chosen to refresh the preview after modifying the setting. Now, the next thing is, after registering a setting, we need to add a control to set the settings. I have added a control for the display date settings. In the control, we need to pass the same settings ID. So if you look at the add control method, I will open the WP customize control class. And if we go to the constructor of this class, we can see the various arguments that it accepts. So there are two settings, the setting and settings, and they are used to declare that all the settings are tied to that control only. If both the settings and the setting arguments are undefined, it will fall back to using the ID that we have passed. This is useful when we have multiple settings tied to the same control, though currently that is not the case in this example. So by default, it fallbacks to the ID, which is our setting. Then that setting name will be used in the input box as the name attribute. A few other arguments are the capability argument, the priority, the section. The section argument defines which sections this control belong to. I have provided the section ID of the post details section here. Then we have the label, description, then we have choices. For the choices, we can have radio buttons or select drop downs with key value pairs for options like radio buttons and select drop downs. For the input attributes, you can add custom attributes. For input controls, the attribute names are the key and the values and the attribute values. However, this doesn't work for checkbox, radio, select, text area, or drop-down page control types. For control like text input, custom attributes can be used. There is also a allow addition feature, which is useful for drop-down page control when adding new content. The JSON setting is deprecated and thus should not be used. As for the types, these are the control types which you can choose between text boxes, checkboxes, text area, radio buttons, selects, and other. The Customizer API also provides a way to create custom controls as well. For instance, the 2021 theme created custom controls, and I will give you a basic overview of that. Additionally, there is an active callback function. If the current settings or conditions match this, then the control will be displayed. Otherwise, it won't be displayed. The active callback can be managed at a control level, section level, or panel level. However, if a panel has no section or controls, it won't be displayed. Similarly, an empty section won't be displayed either. Controls need to exist for the section or panel to appear in the customizer. I've added settings for tags and categories as well in the content options for the blog page. All these options have been incorporated. Now, I would like to give you an overview of the template tags that I've custom designed in my child theme that overrides the 2021 parent theme. To begin with, let me open the template tags file in our child theme. This file overrides the 2021 entry meta footer function from the parent theme. So here the get theme mod function is used. The get theme mod function is used to retrieve the theme modification of the currently active theme based on the given settings. Let's look at the internal working of this function. So firstly, it uses the get theme mod function to fetch all the theme mods using this function. This function will return all the theme modifications of the currently active theme by fetching the option with option name. So it uses the theme underscore mods underscore theme slug. The get theme mod function also applies some filters like the theme underscore mod underscore name, which allows for modifying values. This is significant because the WordPress Customizer API uses these mechanisms as we saw in the first video. When changes were made in the customizer, like updating the copyright text, titles, and menus, these changes were saved as drafts. However, when you preview the website, all the settings are displayed by default without modifying the actual options. This happens because of the filters, and the Customizer API adds filters to return the saved customizer changes, enabling users to preview the changes without affecting the real site. So here, the filter will apply these changes and the get theme mod function will return this theme mods. And if this condition is true, I simply return the function from the parent theme. There's no need to override this function since no changes are needed, so I simply call this function from the parent theme. Similarly, for the categories, to display the categories and to display the tags, I have used this function. These changes will be applied when the user visits the websites. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Jai WordPress.